Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Friday, June 12th. We're another day closer to the NBA. We're into the 40s, Andrew. We're at 49 until NBA is back. But we have two big pieces of news. First of all, the biggest news of all, of course, is that my man Justin Thomas has made the cut. He's in the top 10. And Mr. Hanson's guy, John Rahm, did not make the cut at the Colonial. So this Shirtless podcast show that we had bet on, shockingly, comes to today before the weekend's even over. Oh. So as you can see, if you're watching right now, you can see a little bit of the neck and shoulders. And Andrew is living up to his bet, shamefully speaking. I'm showing the DFS Coach Talk shirt, with a proud Mr. Justin Thomas getting it done. And Andrew, I don't know, man. I just hope to goodness nothing like lies up on the screen up above where you have to reach up and get it and give us all a little tummy action there. So how you feeling there? A little fresh air?
Oh, this hurts. This is just not what I was expecting when we were doing the PGA show on Wednesday. And then Rahm comes out and birdies the first two holes. I'm thinking, yeah, he's right in top form. This is terrific. And he just went south. He just was sort of steady, couldn't get anything going. And, Rory's shooting up the leaderboards in his group and making all the birdies. And man, I just was not expecting this at all. So I got to get it out of the way. And yeah, it's tough.
I absolutely love it. I forgot to tell you beforehand, this is our feature podcast that we're sending to MyBookie and TVG to do a bunch of cross-promotional things for the company. So that'll be fantastic.
Well, that's the thing. The downside is without my black shirt, I don't have my DFS Coach Talk logo like you. But so I've thrown the hat on instead. So everybody knows, who we are.
Well, hopefully, you'll get that chest tattoo of the DFS Coach Talk symbol, then you'll be set. When you lose these bets, you can just sit there with the tat showing,
That's another way to do it. You're right.
That's how you earn DFS cred when you get the
Yeah, that's right.
This is so great. We're going to make this like the longest podcast of the year. Fantastic, man. So we're loving that. I mean, it just I couldn't wait to get to that point. I think I jumped over everything else I was going to do, but it's just fantastic. But like I say, it's been a fun week. It is Friday. We love Fridays, June 12th. Got a great weekend ahead with obviously the Saturday and Sunday rounds, so you can re-up and get into the golf action if you were knocked out, or maybe some folks are going to be able to ride those full tournament lineups into the weekend. Also with KBO, we have the early KBO night on Saturday nights for us, which is Sunday games for them. So we got a lot of fun stuff. But today we're going to focus on the Friday slate with KBO. We want to crush it tonight. And it is a very tough one because of the rain issues and because there's an early game and then 4 later games. So we got 2 lock times with weather in there. So again, big kudos to the DFS Coach Talk team, because it's, we're going to be up until lock, making sure that we have all these guys in place. Before we get started, the show is brought to you by our 2 sponsors, MyBookie. Go to mybookie.ag for all your sports wagering and casino action, and get that exclusive offer that's only offered to Coach Talk members, and that is a 50% sign-up bonus all the way up to $1,000, and a $25 free play just for joining through DFS Coach Talk. So you do that by going to our website, DFSCoachTalk.com, click on the MyBookie symbol right on there, and it'll plug you in to sign up and get all of those benefits. And then also TVG, I was watching some horse racing a little bit earlier this afternoon. All the tracks are back. Now it's awesome. Belmont's back, Churchill, all the big tracks are back. And then been having a blast too, Andrew, following Rouchard, who is one of our members from Australia. He races horses. He owns some horses over there, and just following them, getting to know the horses, watching the replays with him. It's been an absolute blast. He had a horse the night before, or no, last night that ran in Australia. He was dead last in a 15-horse field at the top of the stretch and finished second and was flying. And he's just a 3-year-old. So fantastic to see that. I'm really excited about Rouchard, and I love being able to share that information too. And you can watch most of those Australian races on TVG because they are where the world goes to watch and wager on horse racing. And if you sign up through DFS Coach Talk, also by clicking on their logo on our website, exclusive offer offered nowhere else, risk-free $300 bet. So, for example, Rouchard's horse there, if you wanted to put $300 to win on him, then, he finished second, then TVG would give you the $300 back if he loses. If you did play $300 to place on him, he paid great to place. Now you got box cars, you're set in your account, and you're good to go. So a fantastic offer. Really love my bookie, and we love TVG as well. All right, what we want to talk about to begin with before we get into the teams is the weather. We have done some serious research here prior to the show trying to determine exactly what was going to happen tonight. And again, the pressure is that we want to build these lineups and spend the time with reasonable chance to play these games. However, our big advantage, again, we're going to be 30 minutes before lock at both lock times that, if a game does get rained out, we can make some changes. But what we've decided based on the radar, everything we've looked up, we've been checking forecasts for each city, etc. We have determined that the Kiwoom and NC Dinos game is most likely of all the games to rain out. So for now, we are not going to build lineups today on this show with any Dinos or Kiwoom players based on the fact we feel that's going to be washed out. Now, that may change. We'll keep you posted on that. It will be in our Discord all night, and we'll also be there live before lock. The other game of concern is KT and Samsung. It is right on the border of that rain, and it easily could go either way. The biggest concern is it's been raining there all day, and a trend that we've noticed, Andrew and I just talked about it quite a bit today. That's been the biggest baseball subject for us in KBO, is there seems to be a pattern, and again, everywhere is different the way they do things, but we've yet to see a Korean baseball game starting late, delayed, or in-game delay where they've finished the game. It seems as though the way their schedule goes, I think what they do is rather than screw around, they just make the call and say, it's too wet, we're going to play a doubleheader tomorrow or whatever, and just call it right away. Or they say, we're going to play it, and then generally they'll play through it. So it's way different than in the States here, where they'll wait for 3 hours to get the game in. They'll do whatever they can because the schedules, travel, everything's a lot different. In South Korea, they go on a bus from place to place because everything's so close. Whereas you may be flying from New York to LA here in the States. So that being said, we've put the KT and Samsung game as a 50-50 game where, it's going to be all watching that up until lock big time. The good news is that is the early game. So that is a 1 a.m. Eastern game, midnight here for me in Dallas. So we will know about that game, be able to either get players out or put players in. We decided we're going to include players at this point for that game. But again, that's the most volatile game on the slate. So that's basically what we want to shell out there. The other 3 games we feel are good to go. We see either 0% or very low percent. So we're gonna go after those like normal. Andrew, do you want to say anything else about the weather since your skin's there? The weather affects your body when you have no clothes on.
I'm ready for the rain here. Yeah, yesterday it was the big question mark was that KTW Samsung game, and I wish we'd done the negative rain the negative rain dance. We didn't want to call for rain and get the rain out. We wanted the opposite, but it didn't happen, and that was a problem for everybody who was owning Rojas, and I certainly had him in some lineups. But we've really learned our lesson with the rainouts because you really need to prepare ahead of time what your approach is going to be. And I started out the day building lineups for only 3 games, thinking that the Doosan Hanwha game was also going to rain out, or that there was a good chance of it. As you mentioned, that one seems much more likely to play now. So right now we're really kind of looking at a 4-game slate out of the 5, and so the overall point here is whenever there's a chance of rain here, you really have to build lineups as if those games are going to rain out. If you want to build a secondary lineup that you can switch to, sure, but it's way better to be conservative, only put in players from the games that you're confident are going to play and make pivots later instead of the reverse where you use the whole slate and then you scramble and try to subtract players. So that's what we're going to do here, is really focus on these games that we're confident are going to play.
Exactly. And I'll go one step further and recommend this to our listeners. And this is really a smart move because I've learned the hard way, to do this. Yes, we're in there. 30 minutes goes by like 30 seconds when you're under pressure trying to figure out who's in, who's out, who's scratched, is it raining, what price tag. I mean, all of a sudden you could just hear, it's like the Jeopardy music playing in the background when you're trying to get it done. So here's my recommendation. Like tonight, what I'm going to do is, I'm generally a 1 or 2 lineup guy, but let's just say I go 1 lineup. What I'm going to do is build 2 different lineups and save them on like I'm playing both lineups. One, I'm going to have KT and Samsung guys in there. One, I'm going to have them out. And I'm going to think all that through, make the changes, lock it in. So then when I get to it, I'll have 2 lineups, one with, one without, and I'll just erase one of them and move it over to whichever one applies. So this way, you don't have to rethink, scramble, and possibly make a mistake or run out of time. Was it last week sometime? I literally missed by 2 seconds, and I had to eat a lineup that had 3 guys sitting because when I save my lineup, I just do click, 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 click. I don't even do like a prelim lineup because I've only missed. Now that's the second time in 5 years I've gotten stuck missing a lineup, but it can happen. So to avoid it, that's what I recommend is if you look ahead, this isn't like the major leagues where there's 14 games, 15 games, and there's 5 different scenarios that can play out. We've got 5 teams. We can pretty much tell you that, 1 game is not going to play, 3 games are going to play, and this one is the one you want to pivot to. Now, so on top of that, it really helps if something really bizarre happens and all of a sudden Kiwoom and the Dinos are playing. Now you don't have to totally panic and just start from scratch. You've got the 2 lineups. You can put some of those Kiwoom Dinos in and do whatever you need to do. Just a good piece of advice from somebody that's, had to eat some lineups and, feel pretty sick about it. So I think that's a great idea. Every time we have a scenario like this, and really, you can do that in a lot of sports. Like I do that in the NBA a lot. If I remember particular one scenario where Spencer Dinwiddie was a game time decision, but it's not as easy as you take Spencer Dinwiddie out and you put Kyrie Irving in because the salaries are like $1,800 difference. Then you got to switch somebody else who switches somebody else. So it's a domino effect. So what I did is I built the 2 scenarios, Dinwiddie in, Dinwiddie out, and it really affected 3 or 4 other players on my roster. And then I waited. They gave us the news literally right before tip-off, and I was able to save all my plays onto the lineup that, was the good one with Dinwiddie that played that night. And by the way, he had 40.2 fantasy points. That's what I use the old noodle for. Meaningless statistics that I never forget.
Now these are the numbers. These are the numbers that matter.
They are.
But like you said, you got to take the extreme approach. And what I was doing earlier actually was I was building a lineup with only two games, the Kia game and the Lotte game. Those are the 4 o'clock Eastern starts. And I was even leaving out the early game, the KT, Wiz, and Samsung. And I was thinking, if only two games play, what's my lineup going to be? And I built it, and there's $4,200 remaining in salary because you can't even really fill it up because you've got that weird situation with two games where, how do you pick your pitchers and batters from two games and not overlap where you've got a bunch of your batters hitting against your pitchers? So exactly. you end up making sacrifices and leaving money on the table. So I've got that lineup saved just in case if there's 3 rainouts, I'll be ready to go.
I can't take it, man. I cannot take you serious with just seeing the skin of your neck and shoulders and just the top of your head. This is so hilarious. I mean, absolutely hilarious. I love it. This is definitely going up. Everywhere we can post this podcast, it is going to be seen. I think I need to put the headlines. I'm going to have to let Leighton know when he posts it on Twitter to say the shirtless Andrew Hanson is hosting the show tonight.
Whatever it takes.
This is so great. You're going to hate John Rahm for quite a while, I think.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, that's a stat I'll always remember, what he did this week at the Charles Schwab Challenge.
Oh, next year when the Colonial comes around, I mean, it's all going to be about John Rahm. We're going to post his picture on Coach Talk. I mean, he's a hero of mine just for choking it out so bad.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, that's hilarious. All right, let's see. Let's do a couple things real quick. And I know it always takes me a second to grab it, but it just allows me to give another quick plug to MyBookie. I absolutely love MyBookie, by the way. They are so good at everything that they do and everything that they offer. They have futures on the KBO League Baseball.
Excellent.
They've got everything, man. It's unreal. You can even bet who's going to win and everything else. But let's buzz quickly into the lines for both our sports bettors, and also it helps our DFS guys sort of to know what it's looking like odds-wise, because that really goes a long way with some of the pitchers. KT Wiz are minus 133 against Samsung. Oh, no, is that the right one? Samsung?
Yep.
Yeah. Kiwoom is a big underdog to the NC Dinos. Dinos are minus 185. Then you've got Kia at minus 142 against the Wyverns. You've got the LG Twins, a healthy 175 favorite over the Lotte Giants. And then how about this number? Doosan, 344 on the over-under, on the line against Hanwha. Hanwha's plus 237 because they've lost 18 in a row.
Yeah.
So really, minus 344 is a bargain, if you will.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it really is.
And then the late game doesn't matter to us because it's not going to be in the player pool. But if you're betting it, the late game of KT and Samsung, the second of the doubleheader, you've got Samsung a $1.56 favorite. So let's talk real quickly of the over-unders just to get a scan. There's nothing below 9.5. So there's, again, I don't go over those because I don't want to waste everybody's time, but you've got 3 9.5s, a 10.5 at Kiwoom, and an 11.5 in that Doosan game, expecting Doosan to beat them up. And all the rest of them are even. So it's not like there's any standout lows, standout highs. It's pretty even across the board. So that is our odds update from MyBookie as we speak.
Excellent.
All right, let's go. Game one, man. Game one. This is where you earn those big bucks, maybe enough to buy yourself a shirt to wear on the darn show. It's rough. All right, we go to, it's interesting because for me, I was a full fade on Despaigne yesterday because of the stacked amount of fantastic pitching. Today, I love Despaigne. So it's KTW at Samsung. and it is the 50-50 game. We'll know early, but again, we're going to act as though this game is in play. And I'm going to tell you my side because it only takes about 2 seconds to tell you my side, and then you can break this game down. I'm going to do the coach special, which I love to do actually, is I'm going to take the pitchers from both sides and look for one of those 1-0 games with both foreign pitchers of Despaigne and Buchanan taking the mound. I think both of them are reasonably good pitchers. Despaigne is only 2-2 with a 4.29, but he's pitched better than that in my opinion. And Buchanan's won 4 games for Samsung out of their 15 that they've won, so he's been a good leader for them at 4-2 at a 3.79. Obviously, as you know, my theory, never take a pitcher against your hitter because the stars will not align and you will find a way to make both things not work. So I've got both pitchers here, Andrew, no hitters. Am I crazy or is this a good play?
I like it. I think if I build 5 lineups, I'll do one lineup like that, where I take both pitchers from that early game if it's going to play, and then focus on the bats from the games where we're confident that there won't be rain. So I do like it, but the other way I'm going to use this game is to just get exposure to Despaigne against Samsung and fade Buchanan. I don't like his matchup as much. These KT Wiz bats are really trending in the right direction now that Baek-ho Kang is back in the lineup, the lefty slugger. We know about Rojas now in the 5-hole doing damage like almost nobody else in the league. And they've got Yang-ho Jo in the 2-hole, a lefty who gets on base about half the time. So with those 3 guys hitting lefty against Buchanan, I'm going to shy away from him in general. So I'm going to look more at Despaigne, who went 6 against Samsung earlier this season, only gave up 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts. Right. Yeah. And Saladino's day-to-day, he has a bad back. He might not be in the lineup. So I just really like that matchup the best out of that early game. So I won't be using any Samsung bats. And in the lineups where I fade Buchanan, I will get some exposure to Kang and Joe and Rojas.
Yeah. Joe's leading off, I believe, not batting second, by the way. That's what they're anticipating. So you had said the 2-hole, but I think he's a good leadoff guy. I like him too. But, Buchanan's been steady, and it's just, to me, with the rain out possibility and such, I just feel like, there's not very good pitching. Normally we have a few more guys. It seems like we're getting waves of days where we've got like 5 great starters, 6 great starters, or 1 or 2 maybe at best. So very interesting. So we'll see how that rolls. All right, second game up is Kia Tigers at the SK Wyverns, and that is an interesting game for me. The over under that game is 9.5. But this is not a game that I really did much pulling from. It was just sort of got lost in the shuffle because of the 2 teams that I specifically want to stack. So this is sort of a dead game for me. Do you have any standouts that you're playing or one-offs here?
Yeah, I do. I like Kia's pitching and their hitting. Okay. And I'm really looking at this game in conjunction with the next game, the Lotte LG game.
Okay.
Because if it turns into a 2-game slate, it's this game and the Lotte game. We do think Doosan's going to play as well, so it could be those 3 games.
Yeah.
But if it's only 2 games, if it's Kia and Lotte, I like Kia and I like Lotte. So starting with Kia, out of these 2 games, their pitcher is my favorite of these 4 pitchers. Ki Young Im. His ERA is just over 3, solid strikeouts. His last 5 starts have either been very good or decent.
Yeah.
And he's going against SK, 11-22. Just a poor hitting lineup. So I do like him. And then these bats, they're going against Sung-Won Moon. Last year he gave up 23 home runs. This year he's been a little bit better, decent strikeouts. But if you look at their matchups last year with these hitters, our man Preston Tucker hit a home run against Moon, and then they walked him 3 times.
Yeah.
And the
That's what
catch.
concerns me.
Yep.
I told you
Yep.
they're going to start pitching around that guy.
Yep. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so the key factor there in the middle of the lineup is Cha is questionable with a back situation. So if Cha is out, then they may pitch around Tucker even more. If they don't have Cha protecting him in that 3-hole.
Yep.
So that's the key piece of news to look at in the Kia lineup is Cha playing. But I do like Tucker. I like MU if he's back in the lineup.
Well, MU too.
Yeah, right. And then their catcher, S. Hahn, he hit a home run last year against Moon. And you've heard me talk about him a lot in the last couple of weeks. He's a solid catcher here in the KBO. So again, I really like Tucker. I like S. Hahn, and I do like the Kia pitcher.
I'll give a shout out to our buddy Sugar Shane Caldwell. Whenever you start talking about rostering 7 and 8 hole guys,
Yep.
I mean, I think on the last pod we did, he had about 5 8-hole hitters
Right.
that he was recommending. So he can't defend himself. He's going to hear this and he's going to be like, I'm over exaggerating there. But what you stated was one of the reasons why I'm fading Kia. I think Cha it's a sore back, as you mentioned in the pregame. So, back is tough, man. That's more than most things. I mean, the swing, in golf and baseball, if your back's hurting, you're in deep trouble. So if he sits, it shuffles everything in their lineup. The protection is gone, like you said, for Tucker. And, I just don't like the feel of it. Moon isn't great for sure. He's been a little better, like you said, than he had been. So it just felt like a game that I just didn't want to go out there. Now, I like your consistency of rostering the pitcher against SK. I mean, it's paid off a lot throughout the season because they don't hit well. Their lineup is pretty bad. I mean, Romax picked it up a little bit, but in general, I love the 2 stacks that I want to play so much that I didn't even find a one-off here at this point. So that's where I stand on that one.
All right. Well, let's move to game 3, and here we're at one of the stacks that you want to play.
100%. Lotte Giants and the LG Twins. And I'll let you start off this one so I don't rain on your parade, because this is where I've got a 3 or 4 man stack from this game that I think is very solid. Again, you got a nice 9.5 over under, so that's fair as well. And so what do you think?
Well, when I started to break this one down and I was thinking about a potential 2-game slate with the Kia game and this game, I was figuring, well, I am going to want to go with the LG pitcher against Lotte. He's more expensive. He's got slightly better numbers than the Lotte pitcher. Okay. He's much more established. Last year he was 13 and 8. It's Wu Chan Cha. He costs 8,700 on DraftKings. But if you look at the matchup for the Lotte pitcher, even though he's 6,500, his ERA is over 5. He gets to face an LG without Ramos. Ramos is on the injured list.
Yeah.
And
big difference.
I mean, game changer.
Yeah.
So without him in the middle of the lineup, all of a sudden there's not as much bite there. If Park can navigate around Kim and see Lee, these lefties that we like at the top of the order. And oh, by the way, last year when he faced them, he went 6 innings, only gave up 1 earned run. C. Lee went 0 for 3. H. Kim went 0 for 3.
Yeah.
So I started to look at this and say, you know what? On the surface, this isn't probably what I would have done, but when I really look at the matchups, I'm leaning towards playing the Lotte pitcher against LG without Ramos.
Okay.
And then I'm probably going to stay away from the LG pitcher. And I looked at those matchups with Lotte, and it's probably why you like that stack. Those guys hit well against him last year.
They did.
J.G. on, multiple hits, Daiho Lee. So I'm looking at J.G. on and Daiho Lee, maybe even Machado in some of my lineups here from Lotte.
Yeah. You hit on it. 2 big reasons why Lotte is one of my big, 3-4 man stacks today. basically, if you look at the past history, plus the fact that the LG pitcher has given up 5 homers already this year, and it just plays into that stack. Plus, this stack, the low T stack, is so cheap and value. There's so much value in it that it allows me to get the other expensive stack alongside of them. I mean, I'm really comfortable with. I'm going to play 2, 3, 4. Possibly a 5 in a few spots, and 7. So 2, 3, 4, 7 for sure, and move it around from there. So Gian, on, Lee, and then you've got Machado, who I like, that's down in the 7 hole, which is about as far down as I'll go. But it's, I just think, he's a righty against the lefty. I think this team is, set up for a possible double-digit game. I put the whammy jammies on the Dinos last night. They almost got shut out after I predicted the double-digit game, so that didn't work out. So the odds are in my favor that this will work out today. So I like loading up some of those middle of the order guys along with Machado for Lotte. Like I say, they're super bargains. Chai Hung On is ridiculously priced for a 3-hitter. The 5-hitter, very cheap. You can really get some good deals. And again, it's a path to me to getting my main stack and favorite stack of the night. So I like the history against the LG pitcher. I like the positioning of the hitters. As far as the other side, there's some decent plays in there. I wouldn't fault you for playing a guy or two from LG tonight, but they just don't fit in my builds with the 2 major stacks of Lotte and the team to come that we'll talk about. So any final words on this game? Yeah,
since you mentioned the value for LG, we should mention Young Take Park. This is the very cheap outfielder. Yesterday he hit 3rd. This is a veteran who I believe leads the KBO in career hits, and he's getting up there. He doesn't really have his power anymore, but I got to mention that his batting stance, it reminds me of George Brett, where he really leans back on that back foot and puts his arms way back. So it's a guy that I enjoy watching. As I mentioned, doesn't have a lot of power anymore, but if he's in the 3 hole at like 2,100 in the outfield, he's a guy that you could go to as a one-off. And then I do want to say one more thing about Machado. He ended up batting 5th yesterday. So, some of these projected lineups we're looking at have him in the 7 hole. He has most often been at the bottom of the order this year, but he's been hitting a lot better lately, and there's a chance he might get bumped up and hit 5th or 6th. So
I think there's a great chance because he's a righty and the lefties pitch, and I don't see how they can bat Kim, the catcher, ahead of him. That's what they're projecting, but I'm thinking he may go 5th or 6th as well. So I'd love that. To have 2, 3, 4, 5, or 3, 4, 5, 6 would be a wonderful thing. I'll tell you though, it's amazing how you take one bat away from a team. Removing Ramos from LG, and you look at him, and it's like, oh my God, this team stinks. I even considered taking the Lotte pitcher just because of how, what I think, anemic the LG lineup looks just without Ramos in there. He puts all the pieces together for that team.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, the value on the Lotte bats is going to allow you to pay up for Doosan.
Oh, you gave away my stack. I didn't announce that officially. You should have to stand up and touch the ceiling. Go ahead. I dare you.
Oh, that wasn't part of the bet.
All right. So there's 2 games left on the schedule for this, but we're not going to talk about Kiwoom and the Dinos because we are right now going to count them in as a rain out. We don't know that. It has not been announced. Don't take that to the bank. They certainly could play, and it could be the highest scoring game of the night. So that's why it's very important. Follow the news. Stick with us on Twitter. By the way, you can see us anytime on Twitter, DFS Coach Talk. I'm at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. Andrew is at Language Olympic. And follow us on there, and then it's key, jump in to our Discord. Become a member at DFSCoachTalk.com. If you become a member, you get a frozen membership. So you're going to basically get a good chunk of time from all of the KBO and PGA action until we have basketball and or Major League Baseball. There are sort of rumblings that baseball may come to a agreement. We don't know yet. So again, jump in with a month membership, and the clock doesn't start ticking on that until one of the three major sports is back. All right, so we're counting out Kiwoom and the Dinos. We're not going to discuss them, but we will bring that up in Discord. So it leaves us the last game, which happens to be my favorite game. It's an 11.5 over/under. The wonderful 0-18 in their last 18 games. Hanwha Eagles are playing against the Doosan Bears. Now, I understand the Doosan stack is going to be stupid owned, very chalky, but I've said it a million times, and you guys that watch us every day, I'm very contrarian. I do not give out chalk lineups, very seldom. I will have 2 or 3 single-digit owned guys. So even though I'm a cash player, I'm willing to do the time, research, and spend it and find the guys that are bargains that are contrarian and low owned and plop them right in the cash lineup. And man, it has done wonders for me. So, as far as stacking 3, 4 guys, 5 guys, whatever from Doosan, eat the chalk, go with it, in my opinion. I don't see how you don't against this pitcher, against this team. It just looks like a great game. So to touch on my guys, I mean, you pretty much, Fernandez for sure is a lock. J. Kim, Jay Choi. I also like K. Park, the leadoff hitter. I like, again, up and down from 1 to 6, basically. Jay Kim, the shortstop, batting 6th. More than likely 4 of those guys will make my lineup. So, it's going to be a pretty easy lineups for me, and I'm sort of giving away the house here, but I'm putting the KTW and Samsung pitchers in there and pretty much filling out my entire hitting roster with a combination of Lotte Giants and Doosan Bears. How about you, my man?
Yeah, I like it. I agree that all 6 hitters, 1 through 6 for Doosan, are in the player pool for me as well. You got those 4 lefties who all hit home runs, and we should probably mention that the starting pitcher tonight for Hanwha is a 19-year-old rookie making his first start. So, man, what a tough way to start in the KBO is face this Doosan lineup as a right-handed pitcher. So it's going to be bombs away. I agree they're going to be high owned, but this is a night to eat the chalk with Doosan again if this game goes. So I will also have Fernandez. Fernandez is probably my favorite here. I'd like him at second base so we can get another stud first baseman in our lineup. And because these pitchers that we're using aren't up in that mid 9K, 10K range, we've got plenty of money to spend on these big bats for Doosan. So I agree. I want to get a couple of those in my lineup. I may not stack it quite as heavily as you because I do like the Kia hitters as well. And then you could also use the Doosan pitcher here. This is the lefty Yu, who we're not a huge fan of in general because he has a low strikeout rate, but had a nice outing against Kia last time out, and he's going against the team that's lost 18 in a row. They've got a lot of lefties in their lineup. This should be one of the easiest matchups for him to dominate. Hanwha's completely in shambles. They just fired their manager. 18 losses in a row. It ties for the longest streak ever in the KBO. So if you want to get a little bit different, you could also use the Doosan pitcher, the guy that we don't usually pitch.
Yeah, I think he'll get a decent amount of ownership. I mean, they're way the heaviest favorite. As we said from the MyBookie line, they're minus 355 right out of the chute. So, I mean, he's probably the most sure thing pitcher for the night. But I just, strikeouts are so important. If you can't throw 7 or 8 strikeouts, potential to do that on the board, and get a pitching performance in the 30s, which I don't think Yu is capable of. And I think, he may pitch well. He may win the game. but, scatter a few hits, 2-3 strikeouts. I mean, that's just the way I see it. I think he's a safe play. I don't know if he's a take it down kind of play, though. So that's my feeling there. The other reason I love the Doosan bat so much, Andrew, is what you said is exactly right. This is a young kid from Hanwha, 19 years old. There's no question they're going to have a short leash. So if he gets popped around a little bit, they'll hook him. Even if he's pitching so-so, I don't see this guy going more than like 4 innings. And you get into that Hanwha bullpen, it's awful. I mean, it's really bad. And a lot of those guys, like 5 of them in their bullpen, just were called up from the minors. So, you talk about a mash unit, they're terrible. So that's my theory there. I think, again, I don't care if they're a chalk stack. Sometimes you absolutely have to eat the chalk because you can't play catch up. If you get 3 or 4 homers from the top 6 guys in their lineup, you have to have those to have any chance. So that's pretty much it for me at this point. As far as breaking it out, it's pretty easy for me tonight. And usually, as you know, I have a lot of one-offs, or I like to go 2-man stacks and spread it around. But when I see, some, to me, obvious stack potential spots where one of the stacks is cheap enough, generally when you see that, both stacks are expensive and you can't do it. But in this case, with the Lotte bats being cheap, it falls into place really well. So we'll see how that goes. Again, a lot of it's going to have to do on the news, the weather, especially, and then locking in some of these lineups with a few guys that are questionable. We need to make sure and check on them as well. So I think we have a good combination here today. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I just want to make one more general point here. You mentioned earlier in the podcast about how we like to attack pitchers against SK and Hanwha, and it's become very apparent that that's an effective strategy. And last night we talked on the podcast about the reliever turned starter for Doosan, the $4,000 pitcher, Chubb.
Yep.
And we ended up putting him in our player pool for our members that we distributed through Discord. Yep. And I actually ended up having him in the majority of my lineups. And He was terrific. He had over 25 fantasy points at 4,000 because he was going against Hanwha. And so a guy with an ERA over 7 went 5 innings. He gave up 2 hits and struck out 7. No runs. So
Fantastic.
that's why
$4,000
for $4,000.
You can't even get a good hitter for $4,000.
Exactly. But if you use your pitcher for $4,000, you get a couple extra good hitters for $6,000.
Yeah.
So we're going to
hear something in the background. Do you have any family or kids or wife walking around?
Thankfully, they're not in the room.
Oh so man, I wanted them to be looking at you like, what in the hell are you doing?
They can't see what's happening. They can only hear. So yeah, maybe we should just wrap it up now, and I can click goodbye and finish this John Rahm nightmare that we're in the middle of here.
I'll tell you, I'll do this for you though. I'm gonna take my hat off and tip it to you for following through on your bet and doing it right off the schneid. The tournament's still going on, but you're smart, because I would have hung this over your head for a while, harassing you till you did it. So good play on your behalf to do it.
The only other thing I could have done was hope for a JT injury and have him not finish the tournament and not get paid. And then in that sense, it would be a draw. But I didn't want to wish ill will on JT. So I said, we'll just call the contest now and hope that JT stays healthy. And, I'll just rebound for the next one.
It reminds me of those, when you see those shows where they have the sing along and the guy's head is over the words so you can sing along. That's what it looks like. You need to do the Carl Ravitch, the dance they do on there.
Right.
That would be perfect.
Yeah.
But, good paying off the bet. I'm hoping JT can make a little bit of a run. I'll tell you that the chunk of time I watched a little bit of some of Rory's play, though. Oh, my God, he looks really good. I would, if you're, making any bets this weekend, Andrew and I also do the PGA show. We may have to think about doing a PGA take on Fridays going forward. Let's talk about that, because I think from what I've read and seen, just as many, if not more people, just play the 2-day slate because they're off on Saturdays and Sundays and not the full slate. or a lot of people that get knocked out and reload and go Saturday, Sunday. So we may have to do that because we could have some great discussion from watching the games. Maybe we'll do next Friday. We'll talk about it off air. Maybe do a split KBO PGA show next Friday.
Not much could be better these days than a combined PGA and KBO show because they're the only games in town.
What can you ask for? But
yeah.
I love it, man. Yeah, I know the chalk plays Rory. I do think JT will still make a run. But, there's a lot of still guys that are somewhat lower owned. I wouldn't play the guys that are playing way above their heads. I think what Varner's doing is awesome. I love it, especially with everything going on with the unrest. It's just so cool. But I don't know how many times he's been in a lead situation or up there against all these big dogs. So there's a few guys I'm not sure will be able to hang in there, but you never know, man. Some weird stuff happens. And we called that, when there's been no golf for 3 months, we have no idea. These guys may have been floating on their raft in their pool the whole time and not playing. So you just don't really know. But good luck in those two. We'll be posting stuff in our Discord and chatting a lot about PGA stuff tonight before the tee off tomorrow morning also. So hats off to John Rahm, who's now in my top 10 favorite golfers, for getting this done for us. And can't wait to just splash this wonderful podcast all over everywhere we can place it.
All right, make it end. Please end it for me. Just please.
All right, dude. We'll finish it up. Real quick, want to mention thanks to our sponsors, MyBookie and TVG. Love those guys. Also, our charity of choice here, mambaon3.org. It's all spelled out, MAMBAONTHREE.org. Fantastic. As our listeners know, we've supported them since the Kobe tragedy, and just a wonderful cause. We'll be off this weekend, just chilling a little bit, watching some golf and KBO, but we'll be extremely active in our Discord and on Twitter. Jump in, sign up, DFSCoachTalk.com, and then we'll be back Monday with a super busy slate. We've got our Monday NBA show, which is my favorite of the week, and then it's all KBO, PGA, and just getting ready for all the action and locks this coming week. So, jump in, join our sim contest, man. We've been having a blast. Sort of fired up. My son and I are 1-2 right now. So a little Sarvati domination on the leaderboard to the
it's early.
The Coach
It's
Talk
early.
5.
Plenty of time for us to come back.
I think this might be one of those box to wire, as they used to say in the old dog racing days. You get the lead and you never look back, man. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, that's it. I can't really stall the show anymore to completely continue to embarrass my buddy here. But hats off to you for getting it out of the way early. And we wish all of our listeners a great weekend. Have great success. Let's take down all kinds of stuff. And definitely stay in touch with us on those rain games with KBO. That's going to shape the entire slate. So that is it, my friends. Enjoy your Friday. Again, 49 days to the NBA. I can't talk about it enough because I'm so excited. And we'll be back on Monday to start another week where we're building up this bankroll and getting ready for some of the major sports to come back. So have a great one. And for all of us at DFS Coach Talk, including the shirtless wonder here, Mr. Andrew Hanson, I am Coach. We will catch you again when we look to crush it in DFS.